A quiet neighborhood, a normal summer afternoon, a young girl walking home after school. But what happens next will shake the entire community. A child disappears, leaving behind only fear and unanswered questions. This is the story of Jeannette Tamayo, a case that will take shocking twists and turns and prove that even the most innocent places can hide terrifying secrets. It was June 6th, 2003, an ordinary summer afternoon in San Jose, California. 11-year-old Jeannette Tamayo had just finished her day at school. She was a bright, cheerful girl, full of life, loved by her family, and like most kids her age, she had big dreams for the future. As she walked home that day, everything seemed perfectly normal. Birds chirped, the sun shined brightly, and the familiar streets of her neighborhood felt safe, like they always did. She lived just a few blocks away from school. It wasn't a long walk, and she had done it many times before. But this time, something felt different. A feeling, a shiver, that strange sense that someone is watching you. Did Jeannette sense the danger? Did she know that someone was waiting for her? As she reached her home, she unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Her mother and brother weren't home yet. The house was silent, safe, or so she thought. But hidden in the shadows, someone was already inside. The moment Jeannette stepped in, he struck. A man, a stranger, waiting for her. Before she could react, he grabbed her. He was strong, determined, and had planned this moment carefully. Jeannette, terrified and confused, tried to scream, but he was too quick. He covered her mouth. He dragged her further inside, and in that moment, the bright, warm afternoon turned into a nightmare. The man had been watching her. He knew her routine. He knew when she'd be home alone. And now, he had her. For the next few moments, the house was filled with struggles, muffled cries, and fear. Jeannette fought, but she was just a child against a man who had planned everything. Then, silence. She was gone. When her mother and brother came home later, they expected to find Jeannette, maybe doing homework, maybe watching TV. Instead, the house was empty. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. And soon, panic set in. The moment Jeannette's mother realized her daughter was missing, she felt it in her gut. Something terrible had happened. She called 911. The police arrived quickly. They searched the house. There was no sign of forced entry, no obvious struggle, nothing that screamed crime scene. But Jeannette was gone. Detectives started asking questions. Had she run away? Number Jeannette wasn't the kind of child to do that. Could she have left with someone she knew? Unlikely. Had anyone seen anything suspicious? Neighbors were questioned. Some did report something odd. A car parked nearby that they didn't recognize. A man sitting inside, watching. But at the time, no one thought much of it. Now, that car became the first major clue. The investigation moved fast. Police knew that in missing child cases, the first 24 hours are critical. They issued an Amber Alert. Jeannette's face was everywhere. On TV, on flyers, across the news. Time was running out. But the man who had taken her, he was already far away. And Jeannette was alone with him. Jeannette was taken to an unknown location, a place she didn't recognize. Small, dark room. She was terrified. The man who had taken her was a stranger, someone she had never seen before. But he had a plan. He knew exactly what he was doing. For Jeannette, time slowed down. Hours felt like days. Every sound, every movement, sent shivers down her spine. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know if anyone was coming for her, But she had one thing, her strength. Even in the darkest moment, she refused to give up. And soon, she would do something brave, something that would change everything. But at this moment, all she could do was wait and hope that someone would find her. For Jeannette, time had stopped. The room was small, cold, unfamiliar. It wasn't home. There was a mattress on the floor, a single window, covered, a locked door. She wasn't in San Jose anymore. She wasn't anywhere she recognized. Somewhere outside, life continued. Cars passed, people went about their day, but Jeannette was completely alone. And then, there was him, her kidnapper, a middle-aged man, dark hair, cold eyes, someone she didn't know, someone dangerous. His name, she didn't know yet, but soon, she would, and his name would send chills down everyone's spine. The man wasn't just any kidnapper. He had planned this. For days, maybe even weeks, he had watched her, studied her routine, learned when she would be alone, and on June 6th, he made his move. Now, he had her exactly where he wanted. Jeannette was his captive. He forced her to change into new clothes, ones he had brought. He told her not to scream, not to run. He was calm, too calm. This wasn't his first time, but what he didn't know was that Jeannette was smart, and even in her fear, she was looking for a way out. Back in San Jose, panic spread. Police were everywhere. Helicopters searched. Officers went door to door. Every second mattered. The media picked up the case. News stations flashed Jeannette's face across the screen. Missing, 11-year-old Jeannette Tamayo. Amber Alert issued, "Have you seen this girl?" But despite all the efforts, the kidnapper had vanished. No fingerprints, no security footage, no clear witness. It was like he had disappeared into thin air. But then, detectives found something. A lead. A witness came forward. They had seen a car parked in Jeannette's neighborhood. A man sitting inside, watching. A description was given. And now, the police had their first suspect. At home, Jeannette's mother was desperate. She begged for her daughter's return. She pleaded on live television. "Please, if you have my daughter, bring her home. She's just a little girl." Her voice cracked. Tears fell. The entire city was watching. And maybe, just maybe, so was the man who took her. But Jeannette wasn't watching. She was still trapped. And time was running out. Even though she was scared, Jeannette was thinking, watching, listening. She learned things about the man, his habits, his schedule. She noticed something important. He left the door unlocked sometimes. He listened to the radio. He watched the news. And that's when it happened. One day, the man turned on the TV. And there it was. Her face. On every channel. News anchors were talking about her. Police were hunting for her. And Jeannette? She saw something change in her captor's eyes. A flicker of fear. He knew he was running out of time. Jeannette realized something. She had to leave clues. If she didn't, no one would ever find her. So when she was given food and water, she left evidence behind. She touched objects on purpose, leaving fingerprints. She memorized every detail she could about the house. And most importantly, she started dropping hints. One day, she told her captor something shocking. "My mom is sick," she whispered. "She needs me." She wasn't sure if he believed her, but she had to try. Then, something unexpected happened. For the first time, the man hesitated. Something about her words got to him, and that was the first crack in his plan. But would it be enough to save her? Days passed. The city held its breath. Police followed every lead. but they were always one step behind, until a break came. A neighbor had spotted a suspicious car, a car matching the witness description. It was parked outside a rundown house in another town, a house that looked empty. The police moved fast, and as they got closer, they had no idea what they were about to find. Inside that house, a little girl was waiting, and soon her nightmare would finally come to an end. But not before one final, shocking moment. The house was silent, a small rundown home in a different town, miles away from San Jose, a place where no one would think to look. Inside, Jeannette Tamayo sat in a dimly lit room, waiting, watching. She had been here for 3 days. 3 days of fear, 3 days of uncertainty. And outside, the world was still searching. But something was different today. There was movement outside the house. People, voices, and Jeannette heard something that made her heart race. A knock on the door. The man froze. He had been so careful. He had planned everything. But now, someone was here. He walked to the door, trying to stay calm. He peeked through the window. A police officer. Not in uniform. Plain clothes. But the kidnapper knew. He had seen the news. He had heard the reports. The police were getting close. And now, they were at his door. He had 2 choices. Run. Try to escape before they figured it out. Stay calm. Act normal. Pretend everything was fine. And he made his choice. He opened the door. The officer spoke calmly. Sir, we're just checking in on a report about a suspicious vehicle. Do you own a white sedan? The man hesitated. This was it. His moment to lie, to keep his secret safe. But then, inside the house, from the small, dark room, Jeannette heard the voices, and she made a split-second decision. She screamed. Not loud, not enough to be obvious, but enough. Enough for the officer to hear something. A tiny, muffled sound. And in that moment, the officer knew. Within minutes, backup arrived. More officers, more questions, more pressure. The man tried to stall. He blocked the door, made excuses. I live alone. He lied. There's no one here. But it was too late. They heard it again. A sound. A voice. A little girl. And that's when officers forced their way in. They pushed past him. They ran inside. And then, they found her. Jeannette Tamayo. She was shaking. She had been so scared. And then, she saw them. Police officers. Real ones. And she knew. She was safe. Tears fell. Relief washed over her. For the first time in 3 days. She was going home. But before they took her away, she did something incredible. She pointed at the man and said, That's him. At just 11 years old, she was brave enough to confront the monster who took her. And that moment was the end for him. The man who kidnapped Jeannette Tamayo was David Montiel Cruz, a registered sex offender, a man with a past, a history, and police realized something terrifying. Jeannette wasn't supposed to survive. He had no intention of letting her go. But she was smart. She was strong. And she saved herself. Within hours, Cruz was arrested. Within days, he was charged. And in the end, he would never hurt another child again. When Jeannette was reunited with her family, there were no words, just tears, hugs, relief. Her mother held her tight and whispered, I thought I lost you. And Jeannette whispered back, I knew you'd find me. It was a miracle, a case that could have ended so differently. But because of Jeannette's courage, because of the police's relentless search, and because of one small sound at the right moment, she made it home.